Hi, I am Adriana Aranda along with Miss Raisa May Armamento and Sandra Rivero. We are going to discuss to you the new challenges contemporary societies, human adaptation, and social change. Let's start with a quote from Wendy Carlos. As human beings, we do change, grow, adapt, perhaps even learn and become wiser. This quote means that as human beings, we are capable of changing our thoughts, beliefs, and behavior over the time. In response to the challenges and opportunities that life presents us, this ability to adapt and evolve is what allows us to overcome obstacles, learn from our mistakes, and become more resilient individuals. And a progressive society requires social change, but challenges must be overcome. Responding to social, political, and cultural changes has significant impacts on society. People have devised various ways to deal with these changes through involvement and collective actions, ensuring a responsive and inclusive society. What is human adaptation? Human adaptation focuses on flexibility with which humans, both as individual and as population, cope with environmental challenges through both biological, behavioral, cultural means and changes. And speaking of changes, there are three types of change: social change, cultural change, and political change. And these type of changes will be discussed by Ms. Sandra Rivera and Ms. Raisa May Armamento.
What is social change? Social change refers to the process of transforming aspects of society, including its structures, relationships, and values. It involves modifications in various elements of the social structure, such as the mechanisms, means, method, or systems that govern social interactions. Social change is often associated with shifts in social relationships, the organization of society, the established social order, symbols, and cultural norms, as well as the value system and rules of behavior that guide individuals within a particular society. Examples include the Industrial Revolution, the abolition of slavery, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Women's Suffrage Movement. What is Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution was a period of global transition of human economy towards more efficient and stable manufacturing processes that succeeded the Agricultural Revolution, starting from Great Britain, continental Europe, and the United States. That occurred during the period from around 1760 to about 1820 to 1840. How Industrial Revolution changed society? The Industrial Revolution brought rapid urbanization or the movement of people to cities. Changes in farming, soaring population growth, and an ever-increasing demand for workers led masses of people to migrate from farms to cities. Almost overnight, small towns around coal or iron mines mushroomed into cities. What is the concept of abolition of slavery? Abolitionism, or the abolitionist movement, is the movement to end slavery. In Western Europe and the Americas, abolitionism was a historic movement that sought to end the Atlantic slave trade and liberate enslaved people, which eventually spread to eradicate slavery from the entire world. What is the meaning of civil rights movement? Civil rights movement, a national effort made by Black people and their supporters in the 1950s and 1960s to eliminate segregation and gain equal rights. What is the Civil Rights Movement and what impact did it have? The Civil Rights Act of 1964 hastened the end of legal Jim Crow. It secured African Americans equal access to restaurants, transportations, and other public facilities. It enabled Blacks, women, and other minorities to break down barriers in the workplace. What is the definition of Women's Rights Movement? Women's Rights Movement, also called Women's Liberation Movement, diverse social movement, largely based in the United States, that in the 1960s and 70s sought equal rights and opportunities and greater personal freedom for women. What is the importance of women's suffrage movement and how did it affect society? women's suffrage movement is important because it resulted in passage of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which finally allowed women the right to vote. The 19th Amendment helped millions of women move closer to equality in all aspects of American life. Women advocated for job opportunities, fairer wages, education, sex education, and birth control. And the next one is cultural and political change that will be discussed by Ms. Raizame Armamento.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Ms. Rivero. And now, let's talk about cultural and political change. What is culture? Culture comes from the word colere, which means to cultivate. Culture shows abilities, notions, and forms of behavior persons have acquired as members of society. The relationship between culture and society can be described as this. Culture refers to the acquired cognitive and symbolic aspects of existence, whereas society refers to the social organization of human life, patterns of interaction, and power relationships. The implications of this analytical distinction, which may seem bewildering, will eventually be evident. Now that we know what culture means, let's proceed to cultural change. Cultural change can be described as the following. First, transformation of culture of the way people live. Second, culture is just like any other things in this world. Constantly changes but ironically resists these inevitable changes. And lastly, there are various ways at work that encourage the acceptance of new ideas into a culture. There are some processes that lead to cultural change. First is diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of things and ideas from one culture to another. For example, there are places that accepted fast food chain as luxury foods for special occasions. However, in America, fast food chain products are ordinary and are eaten almost every day. Second is acculturation. It is what happens to an entire culture when an alien trace diffuse on a large scale substantially replace traditional cultural patterns. Learning a new language, adopting new customs, changing dress and appearance are all examples of acculturation. And third, transculturation is what happens to an individual when he or she moves to another society and adopts its culture. A well-known example of transculturation is colonialism. For example, when the Spaniards colonized the Philippines, they brought us their language, its literature, its laws, and even Christianity. That's all for cultural change. Let's move on to political change. Political change happens when the ruler of a country loses power when the type of governance in the country changes, or rulers have huge influence onto the politics of a state. There are two types of political change, which are internal and external politics. Internal politics change due to youth awareness and active participation during elections, emergence of civil society groups, or power revolt of the masses to oppose a system or depose a leader. On the other hand, external politics initiated by other countries, it usually happens through military threats or action, but could also occur in embargoes or withholding of foreign aid. Political change, therefore, is part of the function of the entire political structure of a state. Even external powers and influences can cause political change. And that's how I'm going to end this presentation. I hope that you learned new things from this video. Thank you for listening.